Welcome to Realty Uncut. Our daily shows are powered by CoreLogic and supported by Printforce and realty.com.au.
Hello and welcome to Realty Uncut. I'm your host, Sadhna Smiles, and joining me all this week is Director of Mitchell PT, Hayley Mitchell. And when we come back, we'll be talking to her about due diligence of a rent roll.
In today's market, great ideas alone simply aren't enough, but innovative execution can hand you a real competitive advantage. Nightlight is a cutting-edge illuminated signboard by Printforce that offers round-the-clock visibility and features that maximise advertising space, improving your exposure. Buyers can now see the full picture, day or night, with Nightlight's edge-to-edge illuminated surface, which utilises environmentally friendly, scratch-resistant technology. Nightlight is as versatile as you need to be in today's market.
Hayley, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Now, I want to talk to you about due diligence because this is a fun part, right? There's two sides to the coin as such. The due diligence around the person buying the rent roll, coming in to do due diligence of your business. But I suspect you also want to do due diligence on that person purchasing your business because you want to make sure that you are selling it to the right buyer or business owner. So talk to me about some of the key areas of due diligence people do on a rent roll.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite things to do in my business. I love going in and just going through everything and finding all those things that have been buried for the last 10 years that you go, oh, that's interesting. And it really can affect the value. So I'll give you an example. I went in and did a due diligence on a large rent roll, and this was quite a few years ago, and it had over 1,000 managements. And for me to go in and check every single file would have taken me weeks. So we said, let's just do 10% of the rent roll, and let's look at the authorities and make sure they've got insurance policy and a whole lot of those things, make sure their arrears are up to date and all the documentation's in order, your leases are correct. And when I went in, I found that half of the authorities that they had on file were completely non-compliant. They were either not there, not signed, didn't have the fees on them, the fees didn't match the software, like it was a mess. And I don't think I even went through 10% of the files in the week that I was there. And I basically said, okay, well, you've got a rent roll of 1,000 properties. Let's average it out. You've got 500 of those authorities that are non-compliant. So if you think your rent roll's worth 5 mil, it's worth 2.5. So what are we going to do about it? It wasn't ready for sale. And, that was something, I guess, a big learning curve, particularly for the vendor that was selling the rent roll, and then the purchaser who obviously got really itchy feet about the transition as well. That sale ended up falling through and it didn't go ahead. But that's one big example of, we've got this massive asset, and if we don't have that documentation right, it's worth nothing. So when we go in and do a due diligence, the biggest thing I'm looking at is the authority. And then you look at all the additional things. You look at, do the fees match the software? Does the owner have insurance on the property? Do we have an owner's instructions form and their bank details in writing? And then you go through the renter's files. So, is there an application form? Was it checked? Is there ID? Oh, the other thing for owners, proof of ownership. Massive one. Is there ID on the file? Is there proof of ownership to say that they actually hold the title to that property? Is there a bond lodged? Do we have the RTVA receipt? Have there been routine inspections? What do the reports look like? Is there anything on there that would make the purchaser of a rent roll go, hey, this is going to be a problem tenancy? Are we going to have any issues with, insurance claims in the future or VCAT as well? There's so many different components, and even things like, is there a tenancy agreement? Is it signed correctly? Is it filled out correctly? It's also very helpful if agencies are completely paperless, because for me to go in and grab files that have been managed on paper for the last 20 years, I'm looking through heaps of documents. We need to make sure that we're getting paperless, and that also means that when we do sell the rent roll, you give them a USB, they take it, they plug it into their computer, they merge the software, and off you go. So it's really due diligence. You pick up a lot when you're going through all the files, and you can really see who the great property managers are that have looked after these properties in the past, or, you know, if there's been a portfolio within a business that's been neglected. That really shows quickly.
What you've just talked about is really running your business day to day in the way it needs to be run, because if you do that, then the due diligence just becomes a normal thing. And also, you know, when you get audited, your auditors quite often look at those pieces as well. And if you go for refinancing or financing at the bank do the same thing. So it makes sense for it to be run in the way it should be run from day one. Yeah. I'm interested for you to talk to me very briefly around, you know, I'm selling the rent roll to ABC Real Estate. How much due diligence should I do as the seller of ABC Real Estate? Because the reality is, and we're going to talk about retention on Friday, but, you know, I want to make sure that my clients are going to be happy and they'll stay with them, because that's part of my due diligence as well.
Definitely. And the retention period, whatever you negotiate out, that's a really important key component, because if you lose management throughout that retention period, then you don't get paid for those. So you need to ensure that the person that you are selling the rent roll to is going to be the one that will manage your property and look after your clients. And anyone that's built a rent roll from the ground up, you actually really love your clients. So you want to make sure you are putting them with the right person as well. It's not just a hard business decision, or it definitely hasn't been for me in the past.
So can I, as the seller, then ask the buyer to show me their arrears, their lease renewals, how well they're running their business before I choose to sell it?
Absolutely. You want to also get in the office, you know, have a feel of the office if you can. To make sure that you're going to, I guess, put your clients with the people that you think they'll fit with. It's not always just cut and dry. The other thing is look online. You know, what does their website look like? What are their reviews? What are their Facebook reviews like? You can find out a lot of information just online about people as well. So, yeah, definitely. And look at REA, look at how their properties are advertised for rent. You know, do they just pop them up with some really spelling mistakes in the copy and the photo's terrible? You know, is that going to be the sort of rent roll that you want to merge or sell your business into? So, yeah, it's very interesting when you look at both sides of that equation, because I think they're both as important as each other.
Now, Hayley, just before we finish off, I just want to quickly touch on the additional charges, because that, you know, when you're doing your due diligence, if there is additional income or revenue lines coming into the business, that multiplier is going to go up. And you've had some experience that you can share with us around this.
Yeah, so I had one recently that I found really interesting, and there's a rent roll generally in regional, they're around that 2.75 times, and that's usually what a bank will lend on. And this rent roll came across my desk and it was at about 3.5 times, and I thought, wow, that's, you know, a big jump from multiple. And when I looked at the figures that came through, they'd added in some additional revenue streams. So, and this is something that you've spoken about for years, Sadhna. You know, where can we get additional income when we're doing the job? And one of them was the connections. So they've got a connection company and they make about, you know, $10,000 a year in connections or referral fees back. So they actually added that into the bottom line. And I thought, wow. And I questioned the broker on it. And he said, well, with all the additional fees that have been generated in this rent roll, it's more than 30% of your income. So therefore, it drives up that multiple. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting way to look at it. So as I said, it's for sale. I don't believe it's sold yet, but I'm really interested to see where it ends up balancing, because that really can make a big difference to the bottom line of a rent roll.
Hayley, thank you for sharing that with us today. Now, when we come back tomorrow, I want to talk to you about merging our clients. So, you know, I'm bringing two businesses together, merging the systems, the processes, and most importantly, the onboarding of our people. So I look forward to talking to you about it then.
Great. Thank you.
Realty Uncut is part of the Realty Media Group and is powered by CoreLogic and Printforce. See all our shows, Realty Talk, The Property Show, Realty Uncut and Auction Update at realty.com.au, the home of property.